weapons at your side or something at your side. Arte.
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 Odore.
Odore.
Onore.
Onore.
Right, let's put our weapons down. Let's start with a little bit of a warm-up. Start rolling your shoulders back. Continuing theme of advanced Giocco Stretto, today it's the idea of recovering control. So we started looking at how to defend against thrusts last class, touching a little bit on switch directions, touching a little bit on how we would basically maintain, like after losing control or getting in a situation where there's a thrust, we're not expecting it, how do we parry it? It's essentially the same thing. And to the side, start rotating your forearms around the elbows. Essentially the same idea tactically, but mechanically, it's essentially the same idea with a tactical consideration that you're delivering a thrust. You need to now regain control because you have lost it, switch directions. How do you do that? So there's going to be a lot of similarities between last class, but this is a great way to reinforce some of the mechanics, and I'll focus a little bit on how to make them as effective as possible without breaking your arms. Hands and hips, so making rotations with your hips. If at any point you have any questions, let me know. I love going off on tangents and being able to answer questions. If you need any more context for some of the exercises, just also let me know. This might be useful for not only yourself, me, and people watching, but future people that might be going years from now looking at this video and going, what the hell did he mean? That is the question that I wanted to ask. So that'd be perfect. Don't be shy about interrupting and asking away. Feet a little bit wider, back straight. Bring your shoulders around your waist. I read an article today which talked about range of motion, and one of the best things that you can do for your for your body and for activities, just maintaining range of motion. Switch directions. So instead of just exercising one thing or one particular part of the body, just make sure that you're activating the whole thing. So I'm going to be inspired by yoga, and we're going to do a sequence from kind of yoga that basically targets a lot of the range of motion that we might have. Bring your feet together, bend your knees slightly, start making small circles with your knees. Anyway, the sequence will kind of make it up, and it does enforce a lot of balance. Ooh. All right, switch directions and keep on rotating. I'm just going to lower the volume of my beeper so that it's not the only thing you can hear. All right. So find one spot. We're going to be moving in a long line. I'm going to give versions of this so that if you're finding that balance is an issue or you don't have quite the range of motion, that is fine. Go as far as you can. The goal is to explore the positions and try to push to the ideal sort of extent of the position. So we're going to start with a nice little L of our feet. We're going to lift up our hands. And as we take a step forward with our right foot, I'm going to take a nice big step. I'm going to end in a lunging position, and I'm going to flatten my arms parallel to my shoulders. So I'm lifting up, I'm taking a step forward, and I'm ending in a lunge position. Yoga would call this warrior two. We call it just a lunge. From here, you're going to keep on extending, reaching out with your shoulders so that it's almost like you're getting into a gaining position. Then you're going to pivot at the shoulders, and there's two options here. You can rest your forearm against your knee and lift up the other hand, or if you feel a little bit more comfortable, you can just open up your hands. Think about reaching out with your fingers to the ceiling and to the ground as you maintain this position. Keep your legs strong, keep on pushing as you do this, and if you want to add a little bit extra challenge, look up towards your hand. Take a deep breath in and out. You want to add a little bit extra challenge as well, you can start reaching forward with both hands so that they're going parallel to your head. This is optional, this is not necessary. You're simply reaching with both hands. Take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Now turn your torso. You're going to be placing your hands on the ground. Let your back foot pivot as well. You're kind of in a running lunge position. If you wish, you can also lower your knee to the ground. Entirely optional. From here, your left hand is going to be planted on the ground. You're going to reach forward and up with your right hand so that you are doing the reverse twist that we were just in. Trying to, again, extend out with your hands, try to reach out with your top hand, extend to the ground with your left hand, push from your feet so that you have a nice grounded stance. Take a breath in, breathe out. Slowly bring the right hand down, touching the ground. You can bring your back leg a little bit forward if you want. If it's on the if the knee's on the ground, you can leave it there, up to you. From here, you're going to extend your hands forward and slowly bring your chest up so that you are now in a lunging position, reaching up with your arms, balancing on your legs. Breathe in, breathe out. Reach your hands forward, tilt your chest forward, and you're going to bring your left foot slowly towards your right. Take a breath out, palms facing forward. Take a breath in. Slowly breathe out. All right, turn around. Let's do the same thing on the opposite side. Left leg facing forward. Reach your hands up. As you open up your arms, you're going to take a step with your left foot onto warrior two or a lunging position. The important thing to focus on here is make sure that your knee, think about there's a piece of plexiglass outside your left knee. You're trying to rotate your knee and touch your thighs to the side of the plexiglass. Hold the position for one more breath. As you exhale, start reaching forward with your forearms, tilting by the hip. Once you reach the extension, you can lower your left arm to your thigh or fingertips to as close to the ground as you can. Pushing from your legs, expanding with your fingers, trying to reach up with the right hand, down with the left hand. Look up to your right hand for an extra little bit of challenge. Take a breath in. Breathe out. On the next breath in, you can reach both hands forward. That is optional. Exhale slowly. On the breath in, rotate. Bring your hands down. You can tuck your right. You can place your right knee on the ground if you wish, or keep it facing up. From here, right hand is on the ground. The left hand goes up to the ceiling, rotating in the opposite direction. Look up to your left hand. Reach with your left hand to the ceiling. Push with your right hand to the ground. Push with your feet to create a nice, solid base. Take a breath in. Breathe out. On the breath in, bring your left hand down. From here, you can bring your left leg, your right leg a little bit more forward if you wish. On the breath in, reach your hands forward and up. We're in a lunge position. Breathe out. On the breath in, reach out forward with your hands and take your slow step forward to unite both your feet. Lower your hands. Breath in. Breathe out. Oh, that's good. Nice and reinvigorating warm-up. All right, let's pick up a sword. If you ever wonder why I have white gloves that I place underneath my other gloves, is they're like socks for my hands. They help my gloves specifically not smell bad, but also just keeps the increases the longevity of the glove. So they're just like cheap cloth cotton gloves. If you ever want to get some of those, you can always message me directly. I can tell you where I've got in mine. They really help with making your gloves last. Sword on your left hand. I'm just going to be doing range of motion exercises. Sword in front of your body. You're going to be pointing the sword to the ceiling, pointing the sword to the left, dropping the point as your elbow comes up. Elbow points to the left. The pommel goes forward and the edge of the sword comes forward. Then you got to let the point come down, back towards where you started. Point up, point left, point down, elbow goes down, sword follows. So sword in front of you, point up, left, down, elbows forward, elbow to the left, sword to the left. And you can work this as a smooth sort of action. You can want, if you wish, just pause in each one of the steps, making sure that you have it. Part of why I created a slightly different sequence than this would normally be is I don't want to hit my ceiling. So adjust as you need to so that you don't hit your furniture. If you wish for a slightly more heavy sort of, a little bit more of a workout, you can flip your sword over and hold it by the blade so that you have a bigger lever that you can work with. This also lets you shorten the sword so that you don't actually hit the things around you. All right, switch hands. Sword starting in front of you. Bring the sword, point up, point to the right. As you point down, your elbow comes to point forward. Point the elbow to the right. Sword goes where the elbow is pointing. And it starts back at the beginning. Point up, to the right, point down, elbow forward, elbow to the right, sword to the right. Up, right, down, elbow, sword. And smooth that action out as you're doing this. If you want to add a little bit extra weight, you can hold on to your blade so that you have slightly more robust thing to move. We're going to be switching in about 10 seconds. We're going to be switching to the opposite hand, and we're going to be going the other direction. Switch to the left hand. You're going to be starting, the sword starts pointing in front of you. Wait, no, it's going to point out to the left. You're going to tuck the blade behind as if you're putting it in a scabbard. Elbow points forward, elbow points down, the pommel points to the right, the sword points up, it goes back down. And you can start the same action. Point to the left, tuck to your shoulder, elbow forward, elbow to the right, point up and down. Smooth it out. If you want to again switch to something slightly more heavy, oops, there, hit the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
All right, switch to the opposite hand. Sword starts pointing in front of you, point to the right. Sheath your sword in your back, elbow points forward, elbow points down, sword points across. Point it up and down. To the side, tuck, elbow forward, elbow across, point the sword up, tuck, and smooth it out. And as with the other action, if you want to add a little bit more weight, you can hold on to your blade so that the pommel is at the end of your lever. All right. First exercise we're going to start with. I've got myself a sword in front of me. Let's do that visibly. All right. In the simplest way that we can consider this threat, I want to parry this and follow through with a thrust. So the mechanic of the sword regaining control. I'm going to start with my sword neutral. It can be on the outside line. I want to place my sword into this développé. So I'm really thinking about this as there's an attack I am parrying. I'm going to do the smallest motion possible to execute this parry. As I parry, I'm going to do so with a gather. My sword hands, and I'll move myself so that it's a little bit more visible. My sword hand is moving a little bit. What's completing the motion so that I can create contact if I need to is the rotation of my hips. So if I were to break that down into two motions, I'm pulling my arm, my pommel, so that it's in front of my belly button, and then I'm rotating my hips to create the contact or bring my sword more strongly to my inside. So what I want to focus on right now is, if I'm standing sideways, I'm not just withdrawing my arm, I'm gathering my feet and I'm rotating my body as I gather my feet. Facing the camera, gather, pull the arm in, gather back, create this rotation. And that is where the speed of a good effective parry, a good effective control of the sword, you can think about it as a find, will come from your hips, combined with a little bit of your arms. So what the exercises will look like is, we're going to be playing with a little bit of footwork here, where I'll face the camera. Actually, I'll go sideways first, and then I'll face the camera for it. I am parrying to the inside, gathering forward, extend, thrust. Then I'm going to do the same thing to the outside. I gather into breve, gather my feet, rotate my hips to the outside, extend forward with a thrust. There's another thrust to my inside, gather again, extend. Now I'm going to switch which foot I step forward with. Now I'm going to step with the left. Then I'm going to do the same thing to the outside. Gather into breve, extend forward, thrust, stepping with the left. Back to the inside, gather, coming into breve, step forward to the right. So if I'm facing the camera, I'm starting with the right foot forward, I'm gathering, parrying inside, thrust with an advance to the right. There's a thrust to the outside, parry to the outside, gathering to breve, thrust with the right foot step forward. Back to the inside, parry, thrust with a step of the left, parry to the outside, step with the left, parry to the inside, step with the right, parry to the outside, step with the right. That's what we're gonna do. Focus on, start with your feet. So before we even begin, you don't wanna be upright. There's nothing to really compare yourself to, so be as low as you can on this action. So as I'm gathering, the easy thing to do is gathering and pop up. We don't wanna post like this. As you gather back, keep your legs bent. You can use the top of the camera of the video to see my head stays mostly level. As I step forward, my head stays level. I'm trying to move and not pop up and down. I'm trying to go in, out. There's no up motion. There's no vector, up vector. It's always in and out. Second thing to work on, have your sword moving first. When you're moving back, let me rephrase that. When you're moving back, everything moves together. When you're moving forward, make sure the sword is well extended. Exaggerate it as much as you want. It's a great thing to really mentally practice, extend before stepping. So, starting now, we're just going to be doing this for a minute or so, just to get ourselves in the mindset of parry to the inside, thrust back. Parry to the outside, thrust back. Parry to the inside, switch legs, outside, thrust, inside, switch. Face the camera just for a little bit of variation. As you come into posta breve, a nice position to recognize this. Posta breve, elbows are not really by my side. Keep them in front of you. So as I'm pulling the sword towards my body, I'm bracing it into my ribs. I'm trying to roll the elbows in. That creates a stronger position for me to brace my sword. Part of why I do that is it gives me a very tactile limit to how short my breve is. This is the strongest I can have my breve in terms of mechanics. There is times where I'm going to pull my sword further back, but I want to avoid that. If I want to move further back, if you need to move your hands to accomplish that, you're intentionally placing yourself in a weaker position. Think about, you want to move further back, move your legs. The structure of the sword will be strongest then, and you can move, if you're moving the sword back, it means that you need more distance. If you need more distance, you should move your hips, not your arms. So really, that's a nice mechanic to really practice. Let's do this for another 30 seconds. Think about bringing everything in, keeping the elbows nice and braced so that you can extend the sword back. Brace the arms. move back. If you need to move further back, step back. And then you can step back with a different leg or same leg, up to you. 10 more seconds. And pause. So with this idea in mind, we can switch lines, focusing on the hip rotation. So I have my handy sword assistant here. Oh, there we go, you guys can see that. For whatever reason, I parried on the inside, but I need to now move to the outside. So, provided I don't need more distance, in which case I just need to move further back, you just need to create a rotation from one side to the other. Oh, let's see if I can do this properly. So let's say I did my inside parry, but the sword happens to be on my outside. I rotated my hips to create the outside parry. If I did the same thing on the inside, so I started parrying to the outside and I realized that there's a sword in front of me. I'm going to rotate my hips to bring the sword around. The arms are fast, the hips are faster in a lot of ways. There's a smaller motion with the hip that you can create a bigger motion with the sword. There is a little bit of arm motion that's going to come into that, so we'll incorporate that as we go along. So the same actions, we're going to do the same actions, but now we're just going to be going from side to side. I'm going to parry to the inside and recognize that, ooh, that's not where I need to be. I'm going to rotate back to the outside. Then I'm going to deliver my thrust. Now I'm going to parry to the outside, realize I need to come back to the inside, come back in. So I basically just go parry on the same line, realize that you need to change. So start by bringing the sword in, realize you need to switch to the other line, and come back out. Come back on the same line, switch to the other line, again. That's the exercise. You can switch legs. You don't have to follow any particular rhythm. I just encourage trying it with both legs. Do it all with the right leg, then do it all with the left leg. That helps with just making sure that you can move your body accordingly. This is, again, just a warm-up of the techniques we're looking at. Don't worry, we're not going to be doing just this for the hour. So go ahead and begin. We have a couple minutes. Trying to parry on the inside, switch to the outside, strike. Parry on the outside, switch to the inside, strike. If you have something to focus on, if you have a camera to look at or a particular thing to attack that. Make that the face that you're trying to stab. Or pick a particular point on that you can select. That could be the head or the neck of your target. Okay, 10 more seconds. And pause. Same action, the same idea, but instead of coming back on the opposite line, you come back on the same line. Similar to one of the actions we were doing last time. You can imagine as I am doing the parry, someone disengages to get back on top of me, I counter disengage, and follow through with the thrust. So I'm parrying, counter disengage, and thrust. Caveat to this exercise. It's assuming that there's a particular sword motion. Right now we can't simulate that. That's all right. Remember that you're trying to you're just practicing order and more than anything else. I have my fake sword in front of me. I'm delivering my parry. I am counter disengaging to get back on top to deliver my thrust. So if you do have, later for your own practice, if you do have something to kind of disengage around, that might be useful just so that you have something to practice against. You don't want to make the biggest motion possible that is too big of a parry. Really think about you're trying to get on top, drop the point, bring the point back up with as little motion as possible, but still creating that circular action and extend forward. Parry, disengage, thrust.
So it's specifically a contractazione?
Doesn't matter. Because there's no, yes, kind of, that's what ideally
Coming back to the same line as opposed to switching lines?
Yes, correct. So it's a cavazione, it's a contraccavazione, yeah. So not necessarily in tempo. Contraccavazione is often done in tempo. So it is the mechanic of that, but there's no tempo right now. There's no time. So there's nothing, I can't say that that is ideally what you're practicing, but it really matters if your opponent has the sword to disengage. So let's just try that for a minute. We're practicing on the inside and the outside. Really getting used to you parry, that did not work, get back on top, move forward. Parry, that did not work, get back on top, then move forward. All right, let's make this a little bit more interesting and let's add a cut into this. So you can think about it as the context that I'm practicing is I'm delivering a cut into Giocco Stretto. My opponent begins to thrust against me. They have control of my sword or not, but I need to regain control of the line. So it's really, I'm delivering my strike. I go, oh no, they have control of my sword. I need to get back on top, follow through with my attack. I do it from the left shoulder, I'm delivering an attack. My opponent has control of my sword, I regain control and thrust. So the mechanic specifically that we're practicing here is aborting your forward motion. In fact, we can do it in two ways. Actually, let's practice it like so. Method number one is I'm going to maintain control. I control the sword. I'm going to gather forward as I maintain control, and then I push my attack forward. Action number two. I deliver my attack. I back up to regain control, then I thrust. What will actually come up depends on what sort of parry or how your opponent is getting on top of your sword. I'm going to let you vary that up. So staring at the camera, exercise one is I'm delivering a thrust. I can imagine that my opponent is on either side of my sword. Let's actually do it they're disengaging to strike on my outside line. I'm going to parry while gathering forward and then continue through with a thrust. Really about maintaining control. Option number two, they do the same action, but I'm out of tempo. I need to back up to regain control and deliver my attack. They disengage on the opposite line. I parry this to my outside, follow through with a thrust. So one more time. One, attack, maintain, thrust. Option two, attack, regain, thrust. Just about really how you're moving when you're stepping forward. So let's try those two out. You can vary. Let's just start everything from the right shoulder, and then we'll do it all from the right. So now we have 1 minute. Go ahead.
How are you defining out of tempo?
Great question. I did not maintain control. So in a situation where I'm finding their sword, they're responding to me, and I'm maintaining control, and I can continue moving forward, I am maintaining control. I am in tempo. I'm acting in tempo. If I come to find the disengager begin an attack, I cannot maintain control. I must back up to regain control. So that's my outer. I could not maintain control in tempo, so I have to regain control to stay in tempo. Does that make a slightly better definition?
Like a little bit, but not enough.
I used tempo. I'm imagining an opponent, so that's part of the fallacy of just not having someone in front of me. Really think it's better to think about it, just to clarify it a little bit better. And it's a great question, by the way. Really think about it as I'm maintaining control or I'm regaining control.
I know like the step 4 of the true fight is always attack in tempo.
Yes.
And like, how is that different than steps 2 and 3?
It's if you're moving forward, if you're moving back. It's about the maintaining and regaining control. Maintaining control, you never lost control to start with. Regaining control is your opponent has gotten on top of your sword. You need to now back up to get back on top to follow the true fight.
Right. The difference between 2 and 3 makes sense, but like, where does 4 fit in that? Like, your explanation doesn't seem that 4 is different than 2 and 3.
4 is just the attack, right?
Well, 4 is, so like 2 is, right, like it's what? Seek control, like go forwards.
I'm breaking it down
control,
as
attack
1,
and
2, 3. I don't know what 4 is.
the fourth point of the true fight being attack in tempo is what I mean.
Yes, there's no, actually, good question. There's no tempo right now because there's no opponent.
Sure, but like even assuming there is an opponent, like what does attacking out of tempo mean? Like what is that?
They're not moving.
Okay.
Would be that they're not in motion. Really rough idea of the out of tempo action. They're not in motion. They're ready to respond to you.
Okay.
Let's get back to the exercise. Come back. Let's chat after the class. We can try to narrow this down a little bit more. But let's get back to the exercise. So we are delivering a fendente, gathering forward, finding on the outside, continuing through with a thrust. Back up, back to the posta di donna. Deliver fendente. You gather back to parry to the outside, follow through with a thrust. Recover. All right, switch shoulders. Same thing from the left shoulder. Delivering a reverse of fendente. Parry to the outside, gathering forward, follow through with a thrust to the inside. Back to posta di donna sinistra. Reverse of fendente, gather back to parry to the inside. Thrust to the inside. And pause. Mechanic of posta breve. Make sure your posta breve isn't down here. It's a little bit higher. Especially in a Giocco Stretto situation, this tends to expose your debole much more than having it a little bit higher. I like to have it parallel to my forearm. It gives me the most proportion in a lot of, it gives me the smallest disengages while giving me the strongest find. You can have a little bit of wiggle room onto how much angle you create, but defaulting to the flat will typically put you in a better position than if you default to something a little bit deeper. This will come with experience. This will come with someone just exploiting those positions quite a lot. You can create a lot of force with this two-handed weapon, but really the flat will make it much better to create control. So default to this as you're practicing with no opponents right now. So let's approach now where we need to do a slightly bigger action and the same setup. I'm delivering my fendente. I'm going to maintain control, but instead of coming back on the opposite line, I'm going to come back on the same line with a beat and then follow through with a thrust. Or to follow some of the stuff that we did last class, I can deliver my cut maintain control, strike to the hands if you so wish. We can do the same thing stepping backwards, and that's what we're going to be alternating between the two. I'm delivering my fendente. I need to disengage to beat my opponent's sword, follow through with a thrust, or deliver a fendente, back up with a beat, follow through with a cut to their hands or body as you see fit. Facing the camera, just make sure that I have enough space. I am cutting, disengage to beat, thrust, or beat and cut the false edge, or I deliver my fendente, I gather back to beating the sword, follow through with a thrust, or follow through with a cut of my choice. Well, mezzano to the hand or the sword itself. We're going to be doing that starting with the posta di donna, just practicing the mechanics of that. Cutting, cut forward, beat, follow through, maintain, fendente, beat back, recover control, strike again. Just alternate between the two. Switch shoulders. There's an option of delivering a strike with the false edge. In this scenario, feel free to incorporate that if you did this from last class. And pause. Grab a quick sip of water if you need it. And we'll start on the mezza volta reactions that we can deliver here. Any questions? So I'm just looking at my notes here. All right. So often, one of the biggest advantages of this longsword is the lever, and one of the neatest things that you can do to regain control is use a mezza volta to go over the sword. Often, what a lot of people will choose to do. You can imagine you're delivering your cut. They find you. You come back on top to deliver your cut with a mezza volta, delivering, kind of moving around the middle of the sword to deliver just a conical, creating a conical shape with the point of your sword. The most fundamental way to do this is to get back on top of the same line, it's to come back on top of the sword. So I deliver my attack, my sword here gets buried, I come back on top to strike into the sword, and if I can strike my opponent's face, I will. If they're too far away, I might find their sword and strike their follow through and strike with a thrust. This is a record class, so true fight is not strictly necessary. You just have to understand why and what you give up when you don't follow the true fight. So a few alternatives that are pretty neat are I deliver my fendente, I got parried. I pull the sword back and come back on the same line, aiming for hands. This is one of my favorite ways to keep myself safe, because if I hit the hands and I break the hands, the sword can't really follow. The danger is if you're a little bit farther away, or if maybe your sword is very long, you might end up in a place where you strike your hands and they point at you and stab you. Martially, probably would not have happened because broken hands. With protective equipment, you create an artifact of, well, they're able to beat you. So we've actually done this with a lot of the yielding actions. It's just the same principle, but just using a mezza volta. So I'm delivering a fendente. I pull my sword back. I come back on the same line to strike into the hands or into the face if their hands are not available. Alternatively, I can deliver my fendente, pull the sword back, deliver a reverso fendente to cover the sword, to stick more to the true fight. As with the previous exercises, I can do this continuing forward, more specifically, continue moving towards my opponent, so I might move around them, or backing up to regain control. So if I do it from the side, I'm going to move my sword away so that I have a little bit more space. I can do so as I deliver my fendente, I parry, or I do my mezza volta to strike back into their hands, or I can use my fendente, I got parried, I back up to regain control. A neat mechanic that I want to practice here is, back to the sword, is I deliver my fendente, I pull my sword back, and I realize there's a sword immediately coming towards me. I don't have necessarily space to strike their hands, or maybe they're really good at protecting their hands. I can come down straight into the sword. So whereas a fendente would be moving towards the camera, I change my action to, I pull back, instead of moving this way, I move straight down to strike the sword. So that actually gives me, it is a find, it is a very strong find. It is in fact the geometrically strongest find you can have. It's perpendicular to the blade. Not a lot of threat from the point, but once you deliver this parry, you can follow through with a blow to the face or to the hands. You don't necessarily need to control the sword because the sword should be beaten aside. So what this might look like, just something to recognize, is I deliver my fendente, I'm backing up, I strike like into the sword. So I'm not moving forward, but moving into the weapon. I've created this parry. I can bounce back with a true edge, or to follow the different mechanics of practice, this is the one that I want to focus on. I deliver my parry, I come back with a reverso mezzano. So facing the camera, I'm delivering my fendente, pull the sword back, strike the sword, come back with a reverso mezzano. It's a nice sequence to kind of practice. You can do it from either side. I'm delivering a reverso fendente, pull the sword back. Here the mechanic is going to be a little bit different. It's actually more advantageous to come back with a true edge because of how your hands are aligned. But once you beat the sword strongly, you can come with a falso mezzano from your dominant side. So do it again facing the camera. This is from posta di donna sinistra. I deliver my reverso fendente. I got parried. I back up to strike and parry into that sword, giving myself space. Once their sword is beaten aside, I come back with a mezzano to the face. Doing it from the side, I'll do it reverso fendente, back up, parry, bounce to a mezzano. From posta di donna, deliver fendente, back up, strike straight into the blade, and come back with a falso reverso mezzano. Okay, let's alternate between both sides, and starting now, we have a minute. Fendente, back up, fendente to the sword, reverso mezzano. Sword in posta di donna sinistra. Reverso fendente, back up, parry the sword, falso mezzano. Posta di donna. Fendente, back up, fendente, mezzano. Recover. Reverso, back up, mandretto, mezzano. Mandretto, back up, mandretto to parry, reverso to strike. Donna sinistra, reverso, back up, mandretto, reverso. Sword on the opposite shoulder. Fendente, back up, fendente, reverso. recover, reverso, back up, mandretto, reverso, recover, mandretto, back up, mandretto, reverso, reverso, recover, mandretto, reverso. And pause. So when you have the sword interaction, a lot of these bouncing actions are really about striking the sword and using the energy, the inertia that you've kind of recovered from striking the opponent's sword, and bouncing to a line that they're not in. Especially useful to really think about, I'm expelling their sword and I'm using that energy to bring my sword around to deliver my next blow. The neat thing is, if you don't have that energy, it actually makes it fairly difficult to do, to try to just stop your sword and bring the sword back up. It might come out that their sword is disengaged or something along those lines. Then you have an opportunity to go, I don't actually have that attack that I wanted to do. I need to regain control. So the tactility of this type of cast motions where you cast their sword and that it feeds the energy for you to deliver a more alternative blow really pays off when you can feel it, and when you feel that there's no feedback, that gives you the opportunity to go, I need to regain control. So, following the same sort of theme, what did I just do? Let's consider the mezzano as a recovery into someone that delivers a high thrust. So, sorry, not the mezzano, the mezza volta. I'm delivering my blow here. There's a thrust coming to my face. I can easily back up and strike up into the sword or into the hands. You can imagine someone is trying to do this against you. So if I'm the attacker, I deliver my parry. Maybe I like to lift up my hands to deliver an attack. Maybe because they're expecting resistance, or because maybe they're trying to do a mezzano of their own to your head. So once you've delivered your parry, once you have been parried, there's an attack coming high, hands are exposed. You can deliver a rising blow into the hands, into the blade, specifically covering yourself into finestra. So I'm delivering my attack, there's an attack coming to me, I back up and strike up. So the critical components of this sort of defense are going to be making sure that you're moving back. Moving to, just do it towards the camera. My sword has been parried. I want to bring my sword that way. I do so with my hips. What actually brings the sword across the center line, so this point is right here, I'm bringing it across, is the rotation of my hips. Not my arms, but the rotation of my hips. Was that actually what's going to make me safe? The rising action of the sword is then through your arms. So I just deliver my fendente, I come back into finestra to keep myself safe, either as a strike or as a cover. To make it a little bit more interesting, we're not going to stop there. We're going to come back with a blow of our own. So I'm delivering my fendente, I'm parried as an attack, I come back and cover into finestra. Once I'm here, let's actually have a few fun ones to do. So the typical one that we might do is come back down with a fendente of our choice. Fendente or reversal, depending on their sword, where their sword is. That's actually pretty nice. Slightly more fun one is, I parried, I deflected their sword, I can come back with a soprano of my own, aiming for their hands or their face. I want to be particularly imaginative, and I'm confident that my opponent is just trying to defend. I deflect or parry the attack. I begin the rising blow with a true edge, and I turn it into a false edge blow into the hands. And that's the one that we're going to practice because it is fun to do. I come up into finestra. I start pushing on the pommel. Once I get into this this reverse corolongo, if you will, I'm going to pull on the pommel so that the false edge of the sword is exposed. Once I'm here, I'm in chingara. I can push on the pommel and strike high. Key notes about this blow. A false edge blow is not done with the arms, it's done just with the hands. So you're aiming specifically for the hands or the face. you're not going to do a lot of damage if you're trying to strike into someone's flank with that. It doesn't have enough mechanical chutzpah to actually do damage. So I deliver my attack. Oh no, there's a thrust at me. I parry into Fenestra. I begin the true edge attack, and as I get into this extension, I can come in and flick the point of the sword into their hands. Just for good measure, I'm going to follow through with a fendente to cover myself against a potential attack. So the whole sequence from starting posta di donna, I attack from posta di donna, deflect, using a mezza volta to really strike their hands or strike their sword. That's great. I strike into their hands with a false edge, and then I deliver a true edge blow to keep myself safe. You can do so with either foot. Actually, I'll show you let's do it with the right hand, and then we'll show you from the opposite shoulder. So starting with the sword on the right shoulder, deliver fendente. Oh no, they have parried you. Recover into fenestra, deliver your deflection. Initiate your true edge false edge rising blow attack. Strike with a false edge. Then pull your sword back and strike with a true edge to keep yourself covered. Back up to posta di donna. Try it again. Fendente, sotano, falso reverso, sotano, fendente. Back up. Fendente, sotano to cover. Initiate your reverse sotano, deliver false edge strike. Clearing through their hands, come back with a fendente of your choice. Back to posta di donna. 3 more times. Fendente, recover into fenestra. Falso to the hands, strike to the fendente. Cover. 2 more times. Fendente, sotano, falso, fendente. Fendente, sotano, falso, fendente. And 1 more time. Fendente, sotano, falso reverse sotano, fendente. Let's try from the opposite shoulder. Mechanics are slightly different, but ultimately accomplishes the same thing. Delivery to reverso fendente. Come back into, if you've done any spadone, guardia di croce. From here, you are pulling the sword back almost into corolonga. I'll do it from this side. Almost into corolonga, and then flick the sword up. So there's 2 alternatives for this, depending on how heavy your sword is and how much space you have, really. I deliver my deflection into a fenestra. I can pull the sword entirely back and almost initiate, you're thinking almost you're initiating a true edge sotano. As you get into the end, you can flick into Porta de Ferro and finish the blow with a false edge. So it might look like I'm delivering my fendente, I cover, I pull my sword back, and at the end, I keep my hands low and I strike with a false edge, striking to the hands. For good measure, you gotta come back and strike with a true edge to keep yourself covered. Alternative to this, I've come up into fenestra, I pull the sword back. Instead of pulling all the way to corolonga, it's the same idea for the sword work, but instead of pulling all the way back down, I'm keeping my sword a little bit more elevated and staying at around, imagine there's a sword, you've just deflected a sword, you're trying to do a quick, so almost like a quick rising blow there. The rising blow begins. As you are about to complete it, somewhere around this stage, I push the pommel down and I turn the true edge so that my hand lowers and I strike into the hand. So what that might look like is my reverso fendente, cover in fenestra, initiate the true attack, and as you're about to complete it, strike up into their hands and back forward with your true edge. Let's try that out. We have 1 minute. Reverso, cover, initiate the blow, strike with a false edge, cover again with a true edge. Reverso fendente, reverso sotano to cover, initiate a mandretta sotano, and deliver a falso instead with a fendente for cover. Back to donna sinistra. Reverso fendente, reverse sotano, falso mandretta sotano, mandretta fendente, recover. Reverso fendente, reverse sotano, falso sotano, fendente, recover. Reverso fendente, reverse sottano, falso sottano, fendente. Reverse fendente, reverse sottano, falso sottano, fendente. Do it 2 more times. Reverse fendente, reverse sottano, falso sottano, fendente. Last time. Reverso, reverso, falso, mandretto. All right. So a little bit of hodgepodge of mechanics that we looked at today, looking at essentially the idea of moving back, moving forward to get your sword back on top or maintain your sword on top. It's really about, do you need space? Do you have the time to get on top? If you have the time to stay on top, maintain your forward action, your forward motion, you maintain control, you proceed forward. You need to back up to regain control. That's you regaining control. You back up to get back on top so that you can move forward again. Very true fighty, with a few kind of alternatives of you can beat the sword so that you don't have to have direct line control. You can create a tempo or distance to strike your opponent. That's where you start getting to adaptive fight stuff. But ultimately the goal of today was we look at mezza volta actions that can be done in these scenarios. Do either of you have any questions?
No, mostly I need to practice this and hopefully have an opponent to, like you said, be able to bounce the sword. Because, like you said, it was hard to stop the sword and create some artifacts that just wanted to flow through a different direction with the sword. So
that makes sense. Homework. Practice is at speed. If you have some outdoor space that you can go to or somewhere with a little bit more room, try to do this fast. See what works and what doesn't. Where the conservation of momentum of the sword is important for a lot of these actions. If I finish my blow and my sword is moving very strongly down, that's going to be very different than if my sword stops here and then it can start moving again.
right.
So really thinking about how you can serve that energy of the sword. Add power to it and see how there I finish a fendente, came back on the same line. I can also finish a fendente and come back with a rising blow where I finished the fendente, did a little turn of the sword at the end, and then lifted it back up. That's a great way to kind of practice like what the sword tells you to do. Here's homework. Pick a particular set of exercises that you can do, a particular thing that you like. I want you to try to scale it up. Imagine you're doing play building by yourself, but think about it, it's almost like a choreography. You're doing a choreography, creating a little sequence, maybe 3 or 4 actions deep, and start slow, then speed it up. Get it to speed 5. See if you can get it to speed 5 and make it still work. If you can have the opportunity to videotape yourself, it's a great way to get some feedback. But otherwise, I'll just ask you to maybe show me next class, and we can kind of build off some of the sequences there, where you try to do it fast. If it still works fast, then it probably will work when you're fighting. If it doesn't, then there might be a revision of either a mechanical revision, maybe your mechanics are not working well enough, or maybe it's a tactical revision. The situation in which this is going to apply needs to change ever so slightly.
Right.
All right. Cool. Sweet. We have 1 minute before the cheer, so let's salute out. And Eric, I will talk to you about the tempo thing. Weapons at your side. Thank you all very much for joining.
Well, thank you.
Arte.
Arte.
Ardore.
Ardore.
Onore.
Honor.
All right. You guys have a great evening. I'll see you guys next week.